member Nancy here. In every other episode of Cruising America's Waterways, you've seen me working and having fun as a crew member while we travel on our own boat from port to port, enjoying the beauty of the water and the interesting attractions along our route. Well, this program is a little different. I'm not a crew member, I'm a passenger. And as for Captain Mark, who needs him? We have Captain Mercer. And my co-crew member, John, well, he really wasn't needed because for the next 10 days, we're cruising on a big ship that has its own crew and just about anything else you could ask for. Our cruise begins in Montreal and takes us to Quebec City, the Saguenay fjord, Ingonish, Sydney, and Halifax, Nova Scotia, Bar Harbor, Boston, Newport, and New York. We'll discover beautiful places, interesting people, and a ship that's a destination unto itself, where we'll get to go behind the scenes, only to discover that everyone who travels by water shares the same joys and the same challenges. We set sail from Montreal late in the afternoon, heading down the St. Lawrence to Quebec. Of course, there really weren't any sails to set. We were on a motor ship, the MS Viandam. We awoke at the pier the next morning, ready to go exploring. In every port, there are opportunities to select transportation and go sightseeing on your own, or to travel on one of the many escorted tours, each with its own itinerary. In fact, the Old City was just a short walk from the ship. But I began my day with a tour of a park on the outskirts of town. Just east of Quebec City is La Chute Montmorency, which is Montmorency Falls. This was originally a source of hydroelectric power in Quebec. Today, it's a tourist attraction and a beautiful one indeed. At the top of the falls, which is 1.5 times the height of Niagara Falls, is the Manoir. There are a couple of ways to get there. You can either take a cable car, or if you're feeling adventurous, you can try the stairs. They'll take you up to the top, into the park, and over to the Manoir. The Manoir Montmorency was originally built in the 1700s. It was a Palladian-style home for the governor, and today it contains a restaurant and an interpretation center. I am sur le pont, that's on the bridge over the Montmorency Falls, and that roar you hear is 85,000 liters a second of water passing over the falls. And way down there, you can see someone fishing. Yes. And I understand they've caught salmon here. I returned to the old city of Quebec with its historic architecture and quaint streets lined with cafes and boutiques. Founded in 1608, today Quebec City is recognized as a heritage city by UNESCO. This is for two reasons. One is that it's the cradle of French civilization here in North America, and the other is it's one of just a very few fortified cities in North America. Now, by fortified, we mean that a wall passes around a portion of the city. In this case, the city is also defended by water. Now, through this wall passed 3 gates. These gates were originally much more narrow, and it was thought at one time that they would be destroyed to let traffic pass through. But a visionary decided it would be easier to widen them and keep them to allow for modern traffic. Our next stop is a visit to a glassblower studio. Now, this particular glassblower qualifies with the province of Quebec as something called an économisé. It's a kind of a combination sales shop and demonstration studio. And he'll get special funding from the government because he not only sells his wares in his shop, but he'll also show us exactly how they're made. Within walking distance of where our ship is docked, we found Old Port. This is the original harbor for the city. And today it contains a marina, and you can see that behind me. There's a path where you can bike and run, and a farmer's market. The city has many fine museums, including the Museum of Civilization, which has this special exhibition gallery presently highlighting, what else? Hockey. There are also permanent exhibits tracing the cultural development of Quebec. Nearby is the Museum of Quebec, which houses paintings, drawings, sculpture, and ornamental gold and silver pieces. Quebec City is divided into two parts, the lower town where we are now and the upper town. To get to the upper town, you can walk up one of many escaliers or staircases, or if you'd rather take the easy way out, you can ride the funicular. It's just kind of an elevator that takes you up there and leads you to the promenade of the Frontenac Hotel. Just over here to my left, you can see our boat, our ship, waiting in dock for us. We'll be sailing tonight, but not before we visited the upper town. This is the spectacular Chateau Frontenac. It dominates the entire skyline of Quebec City. In fact, you can't be anywhere in the area and not see this beautiful building. Construction of the hotel began in 1893. It was named after the Count of Frontenac, who was the governor of New France. There are more than 600 rooms, restaurants, and bars. Guests have included Winston Churchill and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. This beautiful park is known as the Plains of Abraham. In 1759, it was the site of a decisive battle between the British and the French for supremacy here in Canada. Today, newlyweds love to come and have their picture taken in any one of these picturesque spots, and you'll love to visit this park too. Our ship is 720 feet long and over 100 feet in breadth. It rises 160 feet above the water with a draft of 25 feet. Its cruising speed is 20 knots, or about 23 miles per hour. There are 13 decks that house the 1,500 passengers and more than 600 crew members. During our 10-day voyage, we'll consume over 6 tons of meat, about 30,000 eggs, and 30 tons of fruits and vegetables. Welcome to my cabin. I'll give you a brief tour. I cleaned it up specially for you. It's a very comfortable bed. Has bedside tables and storage beneath them, individual reading lamps. You've even got music that you can turn off and on right from the comfort of your bed, as well as, of course, controls for your remote controls for your television. Now, in here, this is the salon part of your cabin, and you've got a couch. You have a television and VCR with, as I mentioned before, a remote control. You have a bar, which is constantly replenished. Also constantly replenished is our ice bucket. This is one of the wonders of traveling aboard this ship, that the ice bucket is never empty. It's attended by your cabin steward, as is everything else in your cabin. The cabin steward just kind of mysteriously appears and disappears and makes sure that everything is always looking nice and tidy, and in fact puts a little chocolate on your pillow before you turn in at night. Now, we've also got in here a refrigerator, which is stocked with sodas and wines and other goodies that you might like to have during the day. In fact, one of the things you might like to do is take a piece of fruit on a nice plate with a napkin, maybe even your fresh flowers, and step out here with your glass of wine to the veranda, where you can sit and enjoy the day and enjoy the scenery no matter what the weather. You've got deck chairs, a table, and a beautiful way to watch the world go by. Everyone returns to the ship at 4:30 for the next leg of our journey, the 140-mile evening cruise to the Saguenay fjord. We were given a special opportunity to take you behind the scenes on the bridge of the MS Viandam as we departed Quebec. Canadian pilots, familiar with these waters, were brought on board to assist the crew, who quickly familiarized them with the ship's equipment and characteristics.
Very maneuverable, nothing to worry about in this wind. 2 bow thrusts, each of 2,400 horsepower each, so 4,800 total.
While the river pilots provided navigation, our captain was still responsible for the overall operation of the vessel as master of the ship.
Last time we anchored off Point de Pique for a few hours, so I'd like to do that again tonight. And that gives everybody a little sleep and some rest.
I anticipated that there would be a flurry of activity on the bridge just prior to departure. There wasn't. Everyone simply attended to their specialized area of responsibility.
Yeah, as long as she turns fast.
Oh yeah, you'll see 2 degrees, she'll take off.
The captain completed his briefing, and the countdown to departure was right on
The
schedule.
instrumentation. Twin rudders, hence twin indicators, a clock, an inclinometer, and a relative wind speed in knots. And our engines are on standby, and our men are at harbour stations. We shortly let go our lines and depart Quebec. Enjoy the sail away, and I wish you a very pleasant evening on board. Thank you. Out of port. Yes, go for it.
At first light, our ship hoisted anchor and began cruising the Saguenay fjord, created by the Saguenay River, which empties into the St. Lawrence. Glaciers created the Saguenay fjords, the largest in eastern North America. The area's towering cliffs include Cape Trinity and its statue of the Virgin Mary, erected here in 1881. It took 10 people a week to transport and install the 1,000-pound pine statue. The statue was the gift of a merchant who believed that the Virgin Mary saved his life when he and his horse-drawn sleigh fell through the ice into the river. The point where the Saguenay River meets the St. Lawrence is a rich feeding ground for beluga, humpback, pilot, minke, and blue whales, who come to feed each year from July to September. Passengers began to gather on the forward deck, hoping to see whales and seals as the captain purposely slowed the ship.
Well, I've been at sea it's my 30th year. I joined when I was an apprentice, 5 years old.
5 years old.
Yes, obviously my prime responsibility is the safety of the passengers, the crew, and the ship. And then from there on in, it's to make sure that all our guests experience what they have come to expect from cruising, or are expecting, because some are first-time cruisers. I've also got to ensure that my owners get a return on their huge investment for the ship. And then the remainder of it is administration, a lot of administration, a lot of PR work as such on a cruise ship in particular, father confessor to some, disciplinarian to others. It's an all-encompassing role. It could be described really as a ship manager. There are 3 departments on the ship: the hotel department, which has the hotel manager as its department head, the deck department with the chief officer, and the technical department with the chief engineer, and they're all quite capable men of looking after their own departments. And my role is to oversee that and also to communicate with them on the everyday running of the ship. The technology is changing constantly, and one will find invariably, even when a ship is new, it's rather like buying a computer. In fact, when the ship is new, by the time it's actually working and launched, the equipment on it is outdated. Well, the next generation has come along. I mean, this equipment we've got is very, very good, but it's rather like you take your computer home and somebody's got a better one the next day. At the end of the day, despite all this you see in front of you, you still don't forget looking out of the window is the most important factor. These are all with the emphasis on the aids. The basic seamanship hasn't changed much, but the ships themselves have.
What made you pursue this path for yourself?
I'm often asked that question, and I can't tell you. I haven't got any past family at sea. Some people say it was to get away from my mother, but I don't know. But I haven't regretted a minute of it. It's the best thing I ever did. I wake up in the morning and still look forward to it. So. There's no rush hour, no jumping in a car to get here.
We're on the bridge of the Viandam where we're 110 feet above the water, so we've got a great view. We're coming out of the fjord, the Saguenay fjord, and we're coming back into the St. Lawrence where the whales like to hang around and feed, so we're watching for them. We've seen a beluga, and in fact, there's 2 or 3 of them off to my left right now.
The Canadian government watches people watching the whales to protect both the whales and the onlookers. But mostly the whales, I think. Leaving the whales behind, we'll make the 563-mile voyage to Ingonish.
So we found these top seats so we can film it first. Cheap seats. I mean, the best seats. The best seats.
We've just come aboard what's called a tender. In this case, the tender also serves as a lifeboat, or the lifeboat serves as a tender, but in many ports, the water's too shallow for the ship to actually dock. Whoa! So we get on this smaller boat that takes us into the port. And where we're going today is a town called Ingonish. And Ingonish is on Cape Breton Island, which is part of Nova Scotia. Here. Now the trick is finding out if you can walk on land again. You get used to walking on the ship when it's moving. And this should be an interesting experiment. Well, our ship, which we've left behind out there in the water, is going to sail around the island and meet us in Sydney, which is where our bus tour is going to also take us, but we have a lot of stops along the way.
It's been said that Cape Breton is the soul of Nova Scotia. We came upon this cable ferry at Englishtown, where we crossed St. Anne's Bay.
We're on Cape Breton Island, and I could tell you a lot of facts and figures about the island, that it's 4,000 square miles, 175,000 people of mixed cultural heritage, and there's a lot of Scots, there's a lot of Irish, and there's a strong American Indian population, but really the view behind me says a lot more than I could ever say, so just take a look.
The deck is located on the northern shore of the Breton Lake, the largest saltwater lake in the world. This is a great boating destination, where the tradition is that you can dock anywhere there is a dock. The summer population quadruples to almost 4,000.
One of the joys of any kind of travel is an opportunity to see and maybe collect some of the artwork that you find along the way. In this particular gallery, we're looking at Nova Scotia artists, and right now, Nova Scotia art is highly collectible. You not only can have an opportunity to choose some artwork here, but you can also find out more about the artist who created it.
The Alexander Graham Bell Historic Site is here in Quebec, where he spent much of his life. He once said, "I have traveled the globe. I have seen the Canadian and American Rockies, the Andes and the Alps, and the Highlands of Scotland. But for simple beauty, Cape Breton outrivals them all." Bell had a 59-foot sailboat built as a wedding gift for his daughter, Elsie, in 1917. The boat, Elsie, has been in continuous operation since and is available for charter.
The city of Sydney was founded in the mid-1700s by Loyalists who fled New York, and later some Scottish Highlanders joined them. The harbor of Sydney, which we see here now, has been active for visiting steamships and cargo ships for years, and today has 3 yacht clubs and a marina which is under extensive development. You can right now not only enjoy a boardwalk, but also shops and restaurants all along the way.
When we boarded the ship in Sydney, local dancers and musicians were entertaining passengers in the theater. Our next port of call was Halifax, Nova Scotia, 249 miles from Sydney.
While you're in Halifax, make sure you take the time to relax and unwind in Halifax's public gardens. They're downtown, they're free of charge, and they are the finest Victorian gardens in North America. this oak tree is something you should stop and see while you're in the Halifax Public Gardens. It was planted here in 1939 by His Majesty King George VI in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
We next visited the downtown Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, with its fascinating exhibits on seafaring history, from colonial times to the present.
And in this case is the actual chair that survived the Titanic disaster, intact except for having been recaned. And above the chair is a quote that in itself tells a story. One of the crewmen assured one of the passengers that God himself could not sink this ship. The rest of that story is history. By now, most of us are familiar with the name Jack Dawson from the movie Titanic. He was the hero of that movie. Well, it just so happens that here in Fairview Cemetery, there is a J. Dawson buried among the 121 bodies recovered and buried in this cemetery after that disaster. Well, this happens to be James Dawson, not Jack Dawson. Still, many people come and visit this particular gravestone and leave mementos.
3 Halifax ships helped recover 209 victims of the April 15, 1912 tragedy. 1,200 others were lost at sea forever on that terrifying and frigid North Atlantic night to remember.
While you visit Halifax's Fairview Cemetery to see the Titanic memorials, you'll also find a variety of memorials to people who lost their lives in Halifax's harbor explosion of 1917.
This photograph at the Maritime Museum shows how the city was leveled by the blast. The star-shaped British citadel overlooks the city of Halifax and was built to protect the harbor. Halifax is one of the world's largest harbors, with the modern metro transit moving people between homes and shopping, cultural, recreational, and dining destinations. At a very civilized city hall, the mayor provides afternoon tea to visitors during the summer.
Well, that's it for part 1 of Cruising America's Waterways Big Ship Adventure. And we've had a great time on this trip because as crew members, we've really got to relax and enjoy things. We haven't had a lot of work to do, but we've certainly seen a lot of sights, gone a lot of places, and eaten a lot of food. And we've got another week of it to come. So be with us again next week for more of our Big Ship Adventure on Cruising America's Waterways.